welcome. It's the Tim Anderson Podcast. I'm Tim. That is my buddy Rhino over there in the corner. Rhino, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
As always. And, oh, God, this is just the freshest of fresh air that we have on the other side of the screen. The lovely Lauren Nelson Cain back on the podcast after 7 long months. Lauren, hello and welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, I'm happy to be back. If you hear anything on the podcast that sounds like a dying cat, that is my child. He is strapped to my chest right now. So last I checked in, I was pregnant, and then I took a long break because I don't know if anyone knows this. Being pregnant isn't fun, and it sucks, and I hate it.
And yet you want to do it again. I'm hearing talks that you're going for 4. Like you need a start.
We're going for 4. Who are you hearing talks from?
I just heard that the idea was that 5 offensive linemen were needed, so that we needed 4 more at least to build a line suitable for an NFL team.
All I'm going to say is PJ Fleck called and he offered us a substantial amount of NIL money if we can produce him with 5 solid offensive line.
Just to go to Nebraska in a couple months? That's weird. I don't know why you would do something like that. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, if Ryan wants to gestate those children, he is certainly welcome. That is up for debate on my end. So,
it was, I must say, the baby's beautiful, by the way. I saw the kid on Saturday for the first time in person. You two, you do know how to produce a very, very nice, cute-looking child. I think we got more Lauren's chromosomes into that, which is good. I think that was the key to it. But Rhino, no doubt you have given him an offensive lineman's frame.
Yes, absolutely.
I just want it noted for the record that I played running back.
Yeah, but not anymore, pal. Like, you ain't playing running back anymore.
I'm also 30 years old and I haven't played in 15 years.
Correct. Listen, I used to play shortstop in Little League. That doesn't mean I'm Derek Jeter, all right? Right now, if I were to produce a kid, that kid would be playing offensive line, or actually he'd be playing left out, which means not on the team at all. Like, he would not be an athlete. He would be a speech kid or a theater kid, or he'd be in a choir somewhere, and that'd be about it. Hopefully he'd play fantasy football, yeah. Or
if we're lucky, he'll be both.
Oh, so you're okay with the athlete and the actor, finding the mixture?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Little bit of both of us.
What if this kid hates... Well, I mean, the good news is you have all your bases covered, right? You have some art, you have some athletics, you think you're going to find some kind of niche. But what if this kid is like, I hate football, I hate theater, I don't like movies, I just want to sit in my house and read. And I don't even want to play the video games you want to play. I'd like to just play a bunch of first-person shooters by myself, not with anybody else.
I would hope to God that the child that we raise doesn't grow up to be a loner who only reads books alone in his room and only plays first-person shooters.
He wants to just read.
I would ask, which Swedish white nationalist are you watching on YouTube this week? Because I need to take away your internet access, kid.
That's not just he has different interests. We have gravely failed.
We have somewhere we jumped off we took a left turn somewhere where we weren't supposed to. The GPS, the Google Maps wasn't working.
Mom and Dad flipping back through the manual furiously, trying to figure out what the hell went wrong.
Pointing at each other. It was your fault. I did my best. What did you do?
There's that one time when he was 5 and he hit his head.
That was totally you. It was you trying to play indoor tackle football with our son at 5 years old. Way to go, Ryan.
You let him eat the paint chips.
Oh, so with Lauren back on the podcast, it can only mean one thing. The return of peak cinema. Because Lauren would not be in here to do a deep dive on Vikings football.
Not even the slightest.
So this is exciting because Lauren, I will say this, for about a year and a half, we've done several episodes of Peak Cinema. I don't know, 20-something? We've reviewed a lot of movies, you and I, and Ryan. Mostly you and I. Ryan sits there eating ice cream sandwiches and usually talks about how much he didn't pay attention to the movie or like it or hate it and all of that stuff. But you have been saying to me we have to do this movie. We have to do this. This one needs to be on the list. And I full disclosure on my part, I kept like, but what about this one instead? What about this one instead? Trying to push this off as long as I could. But I think you made it. But I came to you last week and I said, Lauren, we need you back. I need you back right now. I know you wanted to take this all the way out to the new year, but I'm telling you we can't have it. So we need you back on the pod as soon as possible. And you said only if we do this movie. Here we are.
Yes, because I have thoughts that need to get out before I explode.
And because I was so in on this idea, because I needed you back, I watched this movie that night. Free on an app called Canopy, which I think is a public library app that if with your public library card, you can get access to a bunch of movies. So I was able to get access to this movie, which was great. Shout out to Canopy. No free ads, but what the hell? I didn't pay for it, and I got to watch it. So it worked out great. We're reviewing the movie from 2019, Now, I've heard it pronounced both ways. I've heard Midsommar, Midsommar. What are we going to go with for the purpose of this pod?
Whatever your heart desires, because I have watched a lot of interviews this week from the cast and the director, and no one can seem to come to a consensus.
So we've heard Midsommar, Midsommar. We'll go, if it goes both ways, we're good. It's kind of tomato.
Yeah. It's a caramel situation.
Yeah,
it kind of works with the theme of the movie, because the whole idea is a lot of this is up to your perception.
Yeah, I'm going to go Midsommar, but don't be surprised if I drift into Midsommar every once in a while.
I'm probably going to go Midsommar because that's how I pronounce it in my brain, because that's how it's spelled.
Very fair. It's very fair. And so that's what we're going to do. Now, full disclosure at the front end of this pod, normally our movies that we review, 10-year buffer, 20-year buffer, 30-year buffer, so we don't really worry about spoilers. This only has a 3-year buffer. It's the newest movie we've ever done. So there will be spoilers in this podcast. I want you to know that in advance. So if you have not seen it and you want to see it, well, first of all, you've had 3 years. Let's figure it out. But secondly, just put a pause right now on this end of the podcast. Come back to it. Go watch Midsommar. And then come back and see us, and then you'll hear our thoughts after that. I think that's a fair disclosure, right? We've done that?
I think that's very fair.
All right. Let's do it. By the way, this also marks the first film where we have not had a Roger Ebert review.
Oh, you're right.
Our first non-Raj film.
So what are we using?
We're going to use the Rotten Tomatoes score, and we're just going to roll with that. And but I will try to find a secondary. I'll leave that to you as well. Let's find a new. So we have Raj for everything in Raj's life and before. What can we? Is it Richard Roper? Who do we go with now? Who do we have post Raj death to current films? We'll have to come up with a critic that we're going to go to for that. That we bestow the Raj power to.
I don't like Richard Roper. So I can pretty much say I'm going to disagree with almost everything he says.
Fair enough. So we'll find
we'll
workshop. We'll workshop that guy. We'll figure it out. We are doing so it's 2019. It is directed by Ari Aster, same guy who did Hereditary. I believe this is the follow-up to Hereditary. Mm-hmm. So Hereditary, obviously, my wife still tells me about that. Like, it's the most disturbing film she's ever watched.
And I will make a couple of references to it for anybody who's listening who's also seen Hereditary. I will try to keep it to a minimum, but there are just, because these movies happened so close together, back to back, 2018, 2019, and Ari Aster's first two films, there are just a lot of emotional similarities between the two.
We also, because it's a new season of Peak Cinema, have moved some new categories in. That we think you will enjoy as well. And we will get to those at the end of the podcast tonight. You are a big fan of this film in the sense that you have wanted to do this forever. So I'll give you the floor first, Lauren. Why this movie? What's the attraction?
This movie is, I think, nothing like I've ever seen before. I'm a big horror geek, and which you wouldn't know because we don't do it a lot on this podcast for the sake of everyone else.
We did the whole month of October last year. We gave you every Halloween movie.
Those were not all horror movies, though. We did Halloween
and Rocky Horror Picture Show, which scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, that was really terrifying.
Different reasons.
Different reasons.
But I am a huge horror geek, and Midsommar is very different in format in many, many ways. And I believe Ari Aster has said it on record that he doesn't really feel like it's a horror movie, but it clearly is. There are enough horror elements to it to put it in the genre without almost any of the typical tropes. Most people, I think, would compare it to The Wicker Man, but even that movie is a little bit more overt. We know what we're watching. We know what this is, but this is like the only similarities between the two are the like paganistic cult. Other than that, there's really not much there. And I just don't think I've seen anything like it before. And I mean, it came out in 2019, so I haven't seen anything like it since either. And it drew me in when I watched it. I remember watching it for the first time and thinking, oh, there has to be like a twist at some point. At some point, we're going to discover that the cult is satanic or something, you know? There's never a twist in this film. They tell you exactly who they are and what they're about throughout the whole film. There are only a few instances where they overtly lie to the Americans. Most of the time, they're telling the truth. The Americans ask a question, they answer. And it was so interesting to me that when I got to the end, that's what I realized. There was no twist. There was no turn. This is what was always going to happen. And they tell you at every moment they can, this is how the movie is going to play out. And so in that way, I feel like it's designed to watch a second time. You're expecting something the first time, and it completely subverts all those expectations. So you have to watch it a second time, which is so interesting to me.
So you have seen it more than once, then I would guess.
I have seen it 150 times, I'm sure. I'm sure.
You go ahead.
We watched it again tonight because I told Ryan he needed to rewatch it. And there were things in it that Ryan was pointing out that I've never seen before and that I've never caught. It's just an insanely detailed film. It's crazy.
Ryan, out of all the movies, you're usually our wet blanket of this podcast. You usually like to be the proverbial turd in the punch bowl whenever we watch a film. This is one that you like, actually.
Yeah, for a lot of reasons, but Lauren is going to point this out and ask me some questions on this later, just because I won't be able to remember all the points in this. But I'm a bit of a Norse mythology geek. I studied Norse paganism in college. I've written probably 5 or 6 different papers on the Norse pagan religion.
You gotta get a hobby. Good God, man!
I went to. I'm sorry, I studied history and went to college.
Jesus, could you take a power volleyball class or something? My God! All
right. But there's so many references and direct symbols and ties to Norse paganism and Old Norse language that are really interesting in this movie that kind of direct your attention to what they're trying to drive at thematically through this movie. In my opinion, this is the best representation we've ever seen of a true Norse pagan movie in culture. There's a lot of it's very trendy to do the Viking thing right now. It's very popular. Without mentioning or talking about Vikings or Viking culture or ratings or long ships or anything like that, this movie does more to tie itself to traditional Norse paganism than almost anything I've ever seen.
For better or for worse, I guess. But yes, right. You're right. I can listen to that.
It also ties itself. This is not such a good thing, but it lends itself to a lot of references to this sort of idea of white supremacy in Norse paganism and the sort of bastardization of the religious side of it. Maybe not the faith side of it, but definitely the religious side of it comes from that.
I was gonna say, and this has been said by many other people have talked about this movie. This is kind of like a film Twitter favorite to discuss and dissect. But this the sign that they drive under at the beginning of the film, it's all written in Swedish. It just kind of looks like a welcome sign to, I don't know how to pronounce it, Helsingland?
Something whatever. Like that. I believe that's right.
And so it just kind of looks like a welcome sign, and it's written in Swedish. The translation is, "Stop mass migration to Helsingland. Vote for a free North this fall." So there are a lot of that combined with a couple of references throughout the film. Ryan has mentioned there are several runes throughout the film that have been co-opted by white supremacy. There's a moment in the film where they discuss trying to keep their bloodlines pure. And
That's right.
There are kind of several of these very small references that the film is not overtly about the fact that it's potentially a white supremacist cult, but it is pretty obvious when you pay attention to the details that that's exactly what they are.
My first impression when I watched this, Ryan, and I'll let you finish there in a second. My first impression when I watched this was that it felt like, because the plot never takes that big twist that you mentioned, Lauren, that this has to be all about the Easter eggs. It has to be all about the little details. And that's the messaging, right? That somewhere in the subtext here is a big message about society, or a big message about love, or about grief, or about relationships, or about religion and whatever. And you're clearly hitting on a couple of those things, and I'm sure there are others that I picked up upon when we watched it as well, which maybe we'll get into in the notes. But that had to be, when I walked out of there, I'm like, there's got to be more to it than that, which means you're right. I probably need to watch it 2 or 3 more times before I really solve it. Ryan, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that the other major symbol that I noticed was the table that they're sitting at, kind of toward the beginning of the movie, before the first real sacrifices happen.
Yeah.
Of those older characters. That table is in the symbol of an Othar rune, which is the symbol for home, and it's the symbol for pure bloodlines. If you're looking at it from more of a supremacist angle, that's kind of how it was co-opted. So that even the symbol of their table, where they're all seated and they're all kind of looking away from what's happening with the ritual, it's all very insular. It's all very homeland. It's all very supremacist in its nature.
As a guy who's mostly Swedish, family, my mother's first generation American from Swedish parents, it just makes me wish that they would have just eaten some meatballs and played some hockey and been over with it. Because it makes me all like this is not the Swedish this isn't the Swedish land I want to present to the masses. Come on now. Why can't we just have the bikini team and some meatballs?
Well, and I think that's the illusion of this cult, right? That the white supremacy is kind of under the surface. It's not very overt, even to the people who are there, right? Josh, played by William Jackson Harper, is a black man, and he's ready to do his thesis on this society and on Midsommar things throughout different cultures. And it for all the things he narrows in on, trying to study, trying to pay attention to, all the little details, he does not notice that. And if he doesn't notice that, even though he's in this this completely homogenous society, I would think that would be the first thing you would think of, especially if you were a person of color. And that may also be because this movie is written by Ari Aster, who's a white man, and maybe just wasn't thinking about that. But
these characters in general don't see the forest for the trees, though. At any point, do they look around and see, oh shit, maybe some shit ain't right, maybe something's rotten in Denmark or Sweden or whatever we want to call it here. It's like they're oblivious to what is happening around them. It's unbelievable. I've never seen dumber people than I have in this film.
Well, and I think that speaks something to this like ultra intellectualism that some people have, especially when you're in college.
Yeah, these college
and you're
Americans.
Studying something.
Oh, jeez.
But you're studying something and you think you are the end all be all because you're studying it. And so you must be an expert, but you've never actually experienced anything yet. And so I think that definitely speaks to that time in a lot of people's lives, because Mark, Josh, and Christian are all anthropology students, 2 of whom are doing their thesis on this place, and none of whom seem to recognize that it is an incredibly dangerous place for them to be.
Right.
And in fact, I couldn't find this movie, but there is a director's cut of this movie. And I've only seen one deleted scene from it.
I was going to say, is that one 4 hours long? Because this is 2 hours and 30 some minutes as it is.
It's 171 minutes or something like that.
It's a long time, this movie.
Yeah. But there's a deleted scene that I think is important, and I kind of wish it was still in the regular cut. Danny and Christian are having a fight after another ritual takes place where they almost kill a kid. And Danny goes to Christian and says, this place is incredibly dangerous. Like, we have to leave. And he just keeps reiterating to her, like, this is their culture. We just have to be respectful of it. Yeah,
that was in the trailer, and it seemed like it didn't show up in the actual cut of the film. Like, I saw that in the trailer, but it wasn't there.
It really should have been. Even maybe the rest of the scenes had to get cut, but this scene should have really taken place.
I could give you 5-6 scenes that we could have cut just as easy.
But she very explicitly states, he's like, well, I'm doing my thesis on this place, and it's really important that we're respectful of their culture. I'm going to write all this down. And she looks at him and she goes, why would they let you write any of this down?
Right.
This entire society depends on the rest of the world not understanding what happens here.
Yeah.
So why would they let you leave this society with this knowledge? This is a dangerous place to be, and we need to leave it. And she's not wrong about that.
No, she's not. Oh, we got so much to dive into. Ryan, last thought on this little preamble before we get into the stuff?
Yeah, I was just going to say, that the interesting part about a lot of this is you catch this as a Minnesotan, but the amount of passive aggression that happens toward them.
Jesus, it's unbelievable.
It's as Americans, probably the most aggressive line is when Pele says to Christian, "You're American, just jam yourself in there," and that's the tone, right? It's that's just the whole movie. Is it's passive aggressive toward the Americans. So it's just an interesting note that I don't think that anyone who isn't from a very Scandinavian Minnesotan culture would notice explicitly.
Real quick fun fact that ties into that. So apparently in the script, it's not explicitly mentioned in the film, but in the script, Danny's family is from Minnesota. So it would make sense that she seems to be the only one who knows what the hell is going on. And the rest of them are completely oblivious because they're all from, I don't know, somewhere else that processes their emotions normally.
Fascinating preamble. We got so much to get to at this pod. By the way, what are you drinking, Lauren? I mean, what is that? Is that a Monster?
It is a loon juice.
Okay, all right. I was concerned there for a minute. You're pounding energy drinks here? I mean, what the hell?
I am not a 15-year-old.
Well, that's what I was worried about.
Skater kid. I am drinking an adult beverage because I am no longer pregnant, and I can do that now.
Ryan looks like he's working a Mountain Dew over there.
As usual.
Very good. Let's go through the plot a little bit. First of all, the film grossed $47.9 million, received positive reviews by critics. It does have a score of 83% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Although worth noting, only 60% in the audience score.
63. I was just going to say that 63% audience score, which is a rare thing, right? Because that usually flips around. You get a low critic score, you get a high audience score. It's very different when you see it go the other way.
I always feel like that always happens with like highly artistic films. So you really got to take that audience score with a grain of salt.
I always like to take it more as did the audience understand what they were getting into? Because that tends to, especially with artistic films, that tends to be the line, right? Where they don't people will go watch it and think, "Oh, this looks cute. I like Florence Pugh. Little Women was fun," and they go watch this movie and see heads get bashed in, and we'll get to that in a minute. But that can be shocking for some people who weren't expecting it.
I think it's that, and I think it's also, it was obviously marketed as a horror film. Again, I still agree that it is one, and it's not exactly Friday the 13th.
Certainly not.
It's a little bit more highbrow, and the entire thing takes place during the daytime, and there's very little gore.
You're right, it was not gory. I thought it was going to be gory. I thought it got sold to me as a gory film. It's not gory at all, really, except for a couple scenes that are a little tough.
The few moments of violence in this film are like kind of so emotionally egregious. I don't need it to be any gorier than it is.
So the plot of the movie is this. Released, first of all, July 3rd, 2019. So it was a summer film in the United States. Ari Aster is the director, as we mentioned. A couple traveled to Sweden to visit their friend's rural hometown for its fabled Midsommar festival. But what begins as an idyllic retreat quickly devolves into an increasingly violent and bizarre competition at the hands of a pagan cult. That doesn't quite sell it completely, because there's more to it than that. It's a couple that's relationship is on the rocks, and I'm not even talking like the rocks of the Lake Superior. I'm talking like the Rocky Mountains of rocks. Like it's a relationship that's about as toxic and run its course as you're going to possibly get. And don't forget about the 3 tag-alongs. It's basically a friend's trip, a guy's trip, a buddy's trip that she ends up tagging along for. And oh, by the way, part of the reason why the relationship is on the rocks that it is on is because she's needy and cries all the time, but just so happens that her parents were killed by her sister, her unstable sister, who also then commits suicide in one of these really crazy murder-suicide situations, and so she's obviously a mess. That's what sets the scene for really how we get to the scene in Sweden.
Well, and even before her parents and her sister die, it seems like that relationship is days away from ending.
Yes.
She's on the phone with her friend saying, I think I put too much on him. She's very self-aware about this, but also at the same time, her friend in that scene is very right. If he can't handle you and all of the complexities of your emotions, then he's not the right guy for you. And meanwhile, Christian is talking to his friends, complaining again about exactly what Danny is worried about, but refuses to break up with her because that would mean that he's the bad guy. Yep. He is clearly waiting for her to make that decision for him.
We got to get into that. That is going to be in the notes here in just a second. One thing that we usually like to look at is the casting couch. We like to see who else was considered for the role. Couldn't find that information. So my only guess is Ari Aster liked this group of young actors, liked this group of sort of, not unknowns, because we kind of knew a little bit about Florence Pugh. But they're not, it's not big time actors, right? It's not a big time budget film. It's not anything that's going to blow your mind in that regard. I think he took actors that looked the part, and they do. They just look the part uniformly across the board.
I think if you're looking at the cast, the probably the 2 most well-known actors outside of Florence Pugh, obviously, would be William Jackson Harper and Will Poulter.
100%.
From other stuff that they've done.
Yeah, and they're character actors, right? They haven't been in anything as like a star necessarily, but they've been in things. You've seen their faces. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and William Jackson Harper plays a very similar character in The Good Place. So it's very possible that Ari Aster was just a fan of The Good Place and was just like, that's going to be my kind of annoying intellectual guy.
So go ahead, finish up.
Oh, no, nothing. I was just going to say, yeah, that's a perfect part for him. It feels like Chidi in The Good Place is a very charming guy, and all he had to do was turn the charm off to be Josh.
Ready to jump into some favorite scenes?
Yes.
Sure.
Let's do it. Favorite scenes. I'll lead off with one. I actually like a lot of the early scenes before they go to Sweden. I thought that the way they kind of set up the bros trying to talk Christian into like, hey man, you got to just break up with her. You got to just move on from her. I'm like, my God, have we had that conversation in our group of friends like 10,000 times? There was some real, there was a little bit of reality to this, because I think when you're 19, 20, 21, look, we've all dated a loose cannon or two in our days. Maybe not you guys, because you've been you've been together for so long.
106 years.
But most people who have been involved in theater, I raised my hand, before I met my wife, who had nothing to do with theater, once again, on purpose, because when you are if you're in theater, and I get it, I'm generalizing, I apologize in advance. Sometimes you're dating gals with energy. That's all I'm saying. If you're kind of around artsy folks, intellectuals, you're dating girls with energy. And guys with energy too, in fairness. But like, clearly Christian is attracted to energy, but maybe Danny's got more energy than he can handle. And the boys are there to try to talk him off the ledge, like, bro, you aren't sleeping at night. There's a lot of energy here. It's a tough scene. You're going to maybe want to fly the coop, get out of Dodge, all that jazz. And he's doing the old, but I worry I'll put her over the edge if I break up with her. Like, we're that self-important. Guys are so amazing in that regard. They think, well, that's it. We'll be the thing. We'll be the catalyst. It's like, bros, if the parents getting murdered by the sister wasn't enough to do it, I guarantee you, pal, it ain't going to be you. But he's convinced if he breaks up with her now, it'll be curtains. It'll be the worst thing that ever happened.
Well, and I was making this argument because we literally just watched it so that Ryan could see it. I was making this argument the whole time. It's not about her. None of it is about her. It all kind of looks like he cares about her feelings, but he doesn't care about her feelings. No. He cares about looking like the bad guy.
Yeah.
That's what so many things in this film, he only appears to be accommodating to her, somewhat intentionally, maybe somewhat unintentionally, if other people are around, or if it's only going to make her look bad, if it's not going to make him look bad. And I have a hard time, especially in that beginning scene, I have a hard time villainizing his friends, because you only know what this person is telling you about them. You know, they're not like friends with Danny.
And you're making observations, right? You're seeing a change in your friend, or you're seeing a change in the schedule. Here's what we used to do. Now we're not doing it because this guy over here is, crapping his pants every time something negative goes wrong. He's worried about how it's going to make him look. He's worried about how he's going to react, how she's going to react. And it's just like, you know what? I don't need that. Like, I'm not dating your girlfriend. So stop bringing me into your life. Let's deal with this once and for all.
And they're also, you're right. I mean, they're also like, what, 22?
Yeah, maybe? They're 22. They're idiots.
Yeah. And I think that's a pretty, I have a hard time just calling those three extra friends, especially not Pele, because that's a different story.
We'll get to him in a minute.
Like, yeah. But I have a hard time calling them like dicks or inconsiderate, because from their perspective, they're hearing all of this stuff from Christian only. They're viewing this through their lens as Christian's friends. And to them, Danny has too much baggage. And maybe she does. Maybe she does have too much baggage. But the fact of the matter is, she needs an anchor to rely on, and he's not a reliable anchor. And they both know that. But she's so terrified of not having an anchor that she won't break up with him. And he's so terrified of looking like the bad guy that he will never dump her. And so they're just stuck together.
It's just it's two people who literally cannot shit or get off the pot. Like, you got to make a call here and go, and like neither one is like, you sit down. No, you sit down. No, you do it. And that's basically what you got are two gunslingers, standing in the middle of town, and nobody wants to draw.
Well, and that's what Ari Aster has said on several occasions, that he thinks that this is a breakup movie. He wrote it in the midst of a breakup. And he has said before that he wants it to feel as cataclysmic, as apocalyptic, as a breakup from a long-term relationship can actually feel. And I think it does that pretty effectively.
I love that the little guy's made probably a second or third appearance on the podcast, which is awesome. It's so good that the kid's on the pod, getting us some comments in on Florence Pugh. Ryan, I know you haven't dated a lot of high maintenance gals in your day.
I married one.
I didn't say that. I would never offer that information.
You leave me alone.
Yeah.
I'm particular.
But before I met my low maintenance wife, my very low maintenance wife, literally the only thing we can say about her is she doesn't want to drive on the highway. It's literally the only thing we can say. Short of that, we can't say anything about my gal. But I have dated some high maintenance gals, and I don't know what it does to a dude, but like I feel like, again, it's this classic thing where there's a lot of guys that just think, yeah, I don't care if she's crazy. I think I can fix her, or I can rein her in, or I can have control of the situation, or easily. I don't know. Those are guys I just don't trust. I don't trust dudes like this. You like guys who think they can fix everything, guys who walk into situations thinking that, oh, I found a little something I can maybe fix up or control and I'll have for life, that kind of thing. It's the vibe I get off Christian. It's a real douchey vibe.
You know, the vibe I get's a little different. You know, before the podcast, you and I were talking. We both work with kids, right? We're both coaches. You're a teacher, and young people around this age, 18 to 24,
stupid.
They're stupid.
Even the elitist college kids are dumber than a bag of hammers.
I want you to think about the best and brightest, right? The Supreme Court justices, like the legendary minds,
100%.
Other than right now, but like the legendary minds of our society. At some point, were taking bong rips and doing keg stands.
100%.
At college parties.
100%.
Everybody does stupid stuff at this age. This to me screams young relationship.
Yes.
4 years together. They've been together since they were 19, 20, 21 years old. They're all they know, right? They only know each other. So the thing that I keep coming back to with this relationship is neither of them are really mature enough to know that it's time to let it go. And I don't know that it's so much of a question of he's just a dick, because he clearly cares about her, right? At least on a surface level, he wants to show that he cares about her. When both of her parents and her sister die, he's the one that shows up and comforts her, right? He's holding her, he's stroking her hair, he's letting her cry. Despite his friends saying, "Are you really going to go do that?" He shows up, right? The other stuff, the outside stuff, that's all very immature. But there's clearly a core there where he does kind of care about her, and he wants her to be okay, and he doesn't want her to hate him. And he's just generally unsure. It strikes me as immature, not necessarily malicious.
He reacts though like it's a job, like, oh shit, I gotta go to work. Let me go punch the clock.
What guy doesn't?
We don't listen. There are some things that are in the code, but then come on, when you're 22,
it's a chore. Speaking to her is a chore. Helping her with her emotional family problems is a chore. And if you're in a relationship, a good one, it shouldn't feel like a chore.
It was like first of all, look,
that's fair, and I don't mean to cut you off, Tim.
No,
but
go
I
ahead.
got to point something out here, because I know for a fact that we have had friendships that have ended because they felt like a chore. Because when you're talking to that person, their mental stuff, their emotional stuff, it's like, oh my God, do I really have to deal with this person? I love this person. I've known them forever. They're a huge part of my life. But oh my God, do I really have to sit here and go 10 rounds with them over the same thing we've talked about for the last 6 years? You haven't gotten any help. You haven't done it. It does become a chore. You can love that person and it can still become a chore, right? Eventually they have to try and take care of themselves. And that's part of the immaturity on her part, right? Is at some point she's got to step up and she's got to, actually find a way to deal with this herself and not lean on him so much. And she mentions that she's worried about that. And to a certain point, she does that a little too much, where she's like, well, it's my fault. It's my fault. It's my fault. And that's part of that. You've got some growing to do. You've got to realize that it's not your fault. And he's got to get beyond the surface level. Now we're getting into relationship advice for some fictional characters here, but just as a guy
but this is what works in this movie.
It's a very young thing.
I think this works in this movie because I think Astor does a really good job here, actually, of not being of actually, I think, getting to something that's very real in these young relationships. And it rang true. Like, I will say, like, the opening 20-something minutes of this movie rang very true to me. Like, I feel like, boy, I've seen that play out more than once or twice. Like, it's like he's got his hand on the pulse of that. No question. And let's be clear. Danny's a royal pain in the ass. A royal pain in the ass. So much work. Oh, my God. Like, Ruthian work. I mean, just she's the Joe DiMaggio of maintenance.
Well, and I think the difference is between her and Christian is that she knows she's a lot of work. And unfortunately, she has no one else to tether her to this world. Especially, she clearly, even before her family dies, it's kind of heavily implied that she's the family glue. You know,
yeah.
Some families have a glue. A lot of the times it's the oldest. And Ryan, I'm sure you can speak to that, right?
Yep.
Of like feeling like you have to take care of everything. And I sure it's not written anywhere, but I'm sure that Danny is meant to be portrayed as the oldest in this family. She's calling her parents and she's warning them about her sister. She's emailing her sister. She's trying to make sure everything is okay. And I think that the difference between the two of them is that even though she is young and immature and definitely needs to work through her shit, she's very aware of that. And unfortunately, she's aware of that to a fault. She hides herself every time she has an emotion, even though she's feeling something that none of these other people will ever experience because it's so horrendous what she's feeling. And instead of trying to confide in any of them, she knows that she can't because she knows that they're not going to be there for her. So she grieves alone throughout the entire film. And
this is what makes the Christian thing feel like a real chore, though, Ryan. Like, this is where it is. Like, all right, if you care about the person you're with and you just find out something really horrific, tragic, you drop everything and you run over there and you do it. He made it seem like, oh shit, it snowed an inch. I got to go shovel the driveway. Let me go get my boots on. You know, that's what it felt like. It felt like, oh Jesus, this again. Let me go do this. That's just not the reaction. Like, that's just not the reaction.
To be fair, we don't see the moment where he finds out what's really happening. All we see is that he's getting that phone call.
You just get the vibe. You get that vibe instantly, right?
No, for sure. But he just had that phone call with her. She's calling him back maybe 30 minutes later.
You might be right.
Right? You're out with your friends. You're at the same outing, and his friends are sitting there and rightfully, from their perspective, going, "Oh my God, dude, she's calling you again."
Yeah,
she's calling you again.
Yep.
Again.
Yep.
Lauren, you went through this. You saw this with that same. I'm not going to say her name, but that same friend that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Right. Your husband's calling you again. He's calling you again right now.
Yeah.
We've been out 30 minutes. He's calling you again. It's absolutely a vibe that you have.
It is.
When somebody is constantly trying to either keep tabs on or stay in contact with you, that this person's obsessive, this person has a problem, and you don't know what's going on, right? And you've just tried to console them, tried to calm them down, and suddenly you get that call and he's gone, right? He leaves. He goes and he helps her. Even if it felt like a chore in the moment that he answered that phone call, he answered the call.
Well, and throughout the film, so here's the thing. I don't want to villainize him entirely, right?
Not yet. No, I don't want to yet, but you're right.
He is also a victim of this cult.
No question.
In many, many ways.
No doubt.
And yes, he and Danny they're just not right for each other.
It's just a bad relationship.
They don't have what the other person needs, right? They're just not right for each other.
Exactly.
That's it.
The green door on the yellow car.
But I do personally think that Christian is an incredibly insensitive person.
He's total shithead.
He's just a kind of a jerk. He's not just a jerk to Danny. He's a jerk to his friends throughout the movie.
Yeah, he's a ball of nothing. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
Like, there's no affect, no nothing.
It's the myth of the mediocre man.
He's very mediocre. Yeah. He's just a B minus.
He's surrounded by. He's surrounded by Danny, who needs his help, and she's the only value he really has throughout the movie. His value is totally tied to her. His value is tied to Josh, who is doing all of the legwork on this thing that he says he wants to collaborate on. And we see him doing absolutely no research throughout most of the movie. And Josh is doing all of it. Josh eventually dies for the research that he's doing, thinking that he's getting help from Christian, and he's not. Mark is there just to tag on, just to be there. There's no real purpose to Mark, but those Mark and Christian are really just the two most, mediocre men that you could ever meet. Just
nothing
ignorant and just plainly American.
Just not leaders. No potential. There's just nothing there. They want to be anthropologists. I mean, Jesus, nobody's going to be Ross from Friends. You're going to be nothing. Come on, stop. You're going to work at a freaking Aeropostale. Like, let's be realistic about what you're going to do with that degree.
Well, Christian that's for damn sure.
Yeah, Christian he's a guy who's going to be in his 30s, and he's grinding out a 35-hour work week at Aeropostale, and he's trying to figure out why nobody wants to buy jeans that are $85 anymore. It's just, I mean, seriously, that's what he is. There's nothing there.
He's just kind of he's a taker, and I think there is definitely something to that, where this entire the Horga are givers. They're sharers. They share everything. They share everything with the earth, with each other, with even the newcomers. And Christian is a taker. He takes. I used to say when I taught daycare, he takes from everybody's bucket.
Yep.
And and he just fills up his own. So all of this legwork that other people are doing, that's mine now.
Well, you kind of see that in the scene where after Josh dies, you see it in that scene where they say that the book has gone missing. I don't remember the name of the book.
Ruby Rotter.
Ruby Rotter. Thank you. You hear him talking about that and saying, "We're not affiliated." He begged to collaborate, but we're not affiliated. We know nothing about them. We're not friends with them. We're not around.
Sold them down the river in 5 seconds.
Yes.
Let me also this, Ryan. We're men. Sidebar real quick here while Lauren deals with the little guy here. Just you and I. Can we just come over here real quick?
She's on mute helping the baby. She can't reach the unmute button here right now. So let's talk.
Let me just throw this at you. If you were going on a guy's trip and you have a guy's trip planned, there's no fucking way the girl comes along, right? Like there's no goddamn way that happens. That's the end of the friendship. Like if one of your guy friends said, "Hey, I know that we've had this trip planned for a long time, and we've invested a lot of money and time and planning and all this stuff for a good guy's trip to Sweden, but I got to bring the SO along. She's having a tough time, so call that the fifth wheel." You're out, right? That's the end of the friendship. Am I right?
Here's the thing. Obviously, extraneous circumstances happen, but two things. First, this is how I know I married the right woman, because she would never insert herself in that situation.
Mine too.
I say it's a guy's trip, and she says, "I don't want to go. I don't like your friends."
Yeah.
So it's.
Hey.
Oh, hang on. Oh, we heard that. Hang on. You said that too loud, Ryan. You said that too loud. Lauren's back.
Depends on the friends.
That's true. It does depend on the friends. She likes some of my friends, not all of my friends. But the friends that she doesn't like are aware that she doesn't like them. So there's no misconstruing that. The second part is, yes, absolutely. If you're planning a guy's trip and someone says, "I'm bringing my girlfriend," why?
Yeah.
No.
I'm sorry. That's called a veto. That we put the kibosh on that.
This is what I'm talking about, though, with Christian, is that he will only extend a gesture like that to seem as though he's the good guy to her, but in actuality, he's villainizing her to all of his friends. He does it several times throughout the movie.
He says, "Oh, she's not coming. She's not going to say yes. Not going to say yes." No. You should. It never happens. The guys would be like, "No, she's not going to say no because she's not invited." End of discussion.
And he invites her to Sweden. She feels weird about coming. She reluctantly agrees to come, and she can see it and feel it. It is palpable when they tell all the friends that she's coming, that they're all uncomfortable and they don't want her there, and she knows it and they know it.
Well, one guy wants her to be there, and that's old Pele. Pele. When Pele, the soccer player, the great soccer legend Pele, invites her to Sweden, he's very excited.
Well, that's another thing. Okay, so we're talking about favorite scenes. That's one of my favorite
We're
scenes.
still in favorite scenes, so keep going.
So that's one of my favorite scenes because it's shot in a way where you can only see Christian and Danny through the mirror on the back wall because they just want us to see the reactions of everyone in the room.
Yep.
Mark and Josh, visibly, palpably uncomfortable. Like, Josh has his shoulders up next to his ears and they don't come down. They do not want her to come. No. She doesn't really want to come. No one wants her to be there, but she's going, I guess. And I'm sure that's how she feels about it. Meanwhile, Pele, completely calm.
Loves it.
Kind of doesn't like show his surprise or his excitement or his disappointment. Just completely calm. And then she sits down and Pele starts to talk to her. And he is the first person in the movie to ask her about herself.
Shows empathy.
Shows a great deal of empathy. Talks to her about her life. Oh, you're a psychology student? That's so interesting. Come visit me and my family. I'm really excited that you're going. That's actually fantastic. You know, you're going to be there for the May Queen. It's going to be great. He is the only person in the movie thus far who has extended her any kind of real, sincere, genuine interest.
Is it sincere? Do you think he's sincerely interested, or is he more, I mean, he's clearly got ulterior motives.
I think he has ulterior motives, but to her, they seem sincere and genuine.
Right.
And that's what
couldn't get that out of old what's-his-nuts.
Cannot get that out of Christian. And he knows that, and he plays on that the whole movie. No one else is as invested in her life as Pele.
That's very true.
Especially not Christian.
Ryan, give me a favorite scene for you.
I'm going to describe the entire scene because there's kind of an underlying meaning that I love, and I explained this to Lauren at the end of the movie. When he has sex with Maya at the end of the movie, and you have the whole kind of all of the village women are there. Right. Yeah. And it's in this building. It's in this building that kind of shaped like a longship.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is this. So in a Viking burial, a traditional Viking burial, the ship is stocked with the belongings that the buried is going to take to the afterlife, right? So that they're in there, they're already dead. They have a servant that volunteers. That volunteer drinks heavily for a number of hours with the help of the village, right? They all come together and they prepare this servant woman for for burial. But part of that burial is she has sex with the entire village. Every man lays with her as part of her send off to the afterlife. And then she's killed and put onto the ship and sent off to be burned with the ship in the Viking burial.
You could have taken a pickleball class. You really should have taken a pickleball class here. I think that would have been better for you, better for your sanity. Would have been better for you. I mean, just everything. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you're right. I could have gone to school for English.
You sure could have, pal. I'll tell you that. You'd have read some Shakespeare, but other than that, go ahead. Keep going.
But anyway, so this scene where he's having sex essentially with the entire village, right? And their relationship is killed in that moment when she sees him. It's over. The tie is severed.
Right.
And then he is immobilized. He's killed. Right. Yeah. He's still technically alive, but he is killed, and then he is ritualistically burned. It's a Viking burial of their relationship. And it's very much in the reverse. It's very female centric, but it's super interesting because it's all very, very much a play on the Viking burial.
God, that scene was bananas and weird. I just that's actually in one of my, I don't know if I don't call it my least favorite, but I call it just the scene that made me just go, I'm 41. And this movie might just be beyond me. Like, maybe I need to go plug in Ferris Bueller's Day Off or something like that.
I would say I would agree. If I had a least favorite scene in this movie, it would be that one, and that's only because
it's uncomfortably long, Lauren.
Uncomfortable watching
it's
it.
uncomfortably long too. It's almost like the entire. I mean, he's longer than anybody else. Like, there's there's dudes that can't go 45 seconds. That scene goes for like 7 minutes.
He's also heavily drugged.
He's heavily drugged.
But I mean, God, man.
That guy's mashing some warm bologna in there. It's not even.
But he ate a pube pie from her, for Christ's sake. I mean, Jesus H.
I think it's, I wouldn't like cut it out of the movie. It's not like I think it's useless. Clearly, it serves a very important purpose, and I recognized this earlier too. Danny's been crowned May Queen. She comes out of that little carriage she's in. And she looks at the building that he's having sex with Maya in, and she goes, "What's that?" And they go, "Oh, that's not for you." And then she starts walking towards it anyways. No one stops her.
No, she's the May Queen.
No one stops her. And the reason that they don't stop her is because they want her to see that.
Yeah.
They want her. She has one tie that needs to be severed. A single one. And it's that guy. And they know what's happening in there, and they need her to see it.
And I think what does it in, it's not the act. It's the fact that we've got simultaneous moaning from the old ladies in the Viking building. And then Danny flips out and starts just heave crying in what is just one of many heave cries that Danny gives us in the film. But this might be the heaviest of heave cries. And what happens? The rest of the town lady follow her, and it's just a giant sex moan, heave cry, like duet. It's like it goes for 4 minutes. It's uncomfortable as hell.
I would say the heave crying part is ironically one of my favorite scenes, just because you can tell in that moment. First of all, it does a couple of things. Both those scenes back together do a couple of scenes. They tell you about this cult and how they are such an emotionally resonant cult. Sharing emotions is one of the most important things in this culture, right?
Specifically for the women.
And
the men just get bashed in the heads with wooden mallets.
Jesus, yeah, no kidding.
But that's something. So I think that's something incredibly important about the cult that they absolutely needed to explicitly state before the film ends. And two, I like the Danny crying scene because that is the moment it obviously clicks in her head that she's going to stay here.
Right.
That is the moment that she decides no one else in my life is offering this kind of connection.
Yep. Give me the robe of flowers. I ain't going nowhere.
I have no family. I have nothing. And now I don't even have a boyfriend. I have no tether to my life back in wherever the fuck they're from. And that is the moment that she decides to stay. And they wanted it to make it's obvious throughout the film that they want it to be her choice, but that they are going to make sure that she makes that choice. And that's why I really like that scene, because it's clear what the cult is doing to her, but that she feels like this is her decision to stay.
It's you're hitting on a lot of these notes. One more scene that I think we have to at least touch on quickly before we go maybe to least favorite scenes would be the drug trip when they first arrive and they take the mushroom tea or whatever that is. They just pound the mushrooms there and have this trip, and it just feels like from the minute this drug trip happens, it's almost like the Americans have shut the brain off. Like their ability to make rational, clear decisions, their ability to assess their surroundings and their risk factors, you just feel like it goes all out the window from the moment they go on this mushroom trip. And that's why I think and I think Astor even talks about how he wanted this film to kind of feel like a trip, right? Just one big drug adventure for you, just like a night on NyQuil or whatever the hell it was. But that's kind of a central piece of this film, right?
I think so. I think For a couple of reasons. One, I think Ari Aster has said many, many times that he feels like it's a fairy tale. And in order to make it feel like a fairy tale, in order to make all of this kind of feel unreal, the drugs are kind of part of that. You know, right away in that scene, like grass is growing out of her hand. She looks up and the tree is moving in kind of a weird way. When she runs off, when she's crying, she envisions her sister behind her. They need to feel like they're in this heightened emotional state from the jump. And two, that's what the cult is trying to do. They drug them several times throughout the film, and they do so by being like, here, take these mushrooms, take this herb infused tea that's going to get you high, whatever it is. And they're doing it in a way where they're like, this will be fun. It'll heighten your experience. But what they're doing is they're trying to turn your brain to mush so that you are more susceptible to what they're trying to do here.
But it leaves us in a weird spot where we don't know what's real and what's not.
It does challenge that a little bit.
We don't really know when is Danny sober and when is Danny high, right? When is what she's seeing real, right? And I mean, she and Christian basically don't speak for the last half hour of the movie, and it's one long drug trip. How much of this was real, right? Mm-hmm. There's always going to be that question of how much of this was legitimate.
Yeah. And I think that's important because you're right, because we are following, especially for the last half hour of the movie, we are following two characters. We are following Christian and Danny, and both of them are on drugs for the last full half hour of the film. So how much of that is truly happening?
And I'm trying to get the logic here of going on a trip, like drug tripping 5 minutes after a long 24-hour flight, or whatever the hell that flight. I mean, it's just forever flight. I mean, you got jet lag out the ass here, gotta be 22. Just exhausted. I mean, what can we get to a White Castle or something? Like, can we just get 5 minutes after we land to just chill out here, as opposed to let's go trip balls 5 seconds after landing?
Well, they are 22 and they're in grad school.
That's
so
fair.
That makes perfect sense to me.
That's very fair. That's very fair. 24, like the daylight is a factor too. Now we get more night scenes, but there are also some scenes where I think even like a Mark or whatever talks about how it's 3 a.m. It can't be 3 a.m. and it be sunshiny out. Now, is that part of the drug trip, or are they taking advantage of the long light days that Sweden has in the summertime? Which I was guessing that was the case, right?
I think that's the case. Yeah. That's eventually that goes away and they have like a very short night, it appears, which is, I think, when Josh goes to steal the pictures from the Ruby Rotter.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that's the idea, is that that's part of what's disorienting them, on top of taking drugs, on top of this weird new society, is the fact that it's daylight for the majority of the time that they're there.
Yeah, it just messes with your equilibrium, your balance, your daytime feel. 3 a.m. needs to feel a certain way. Even in the summertime here, when it gets dark at 9:30 in Minnesota, we still feel like 3 a.m. is 3 a.m. It's still dark, right? And to lose that feeling is probably weird.
Yeah, to lose to lose your sense of time.
Correct.
I think is probably really screwing with them quite a bit.
Ryan, can I ask you this question before we go to least favorite scenes? What is
sure? I was gonna weigh in on that just real quick.
Oh, please do. And then after you weigh in, tell me the draw of a cult. What is the draw?
Oh God. Okay.
Like because especially like a Norse pagan cult like this, what would be the draw?
Yeah.
But first, go ahead with your daylight thought.
So the daylight thing geographically, if we're looking at where Hälsingland is in Sweden, because it is a real place.
Yep.
It's around the same distance to the Arctic Circle from Alaska to the Arctic Circle, right? So in that part of the summer, it is only going to get only a little dark for just a couple of hours, and then it's going to be light, right? Like it's further longitudinally, it's further north than Alaska. So it's kind of where the Aleutians meet the mainland there.
Yep.
Where that peninsula kind of sweeps in. That's that distance is about the same distance between the Arctic Circle and Helsingland.
You could play golf at 10 p.m. there.
Correct. You wouldn't want to, but yeah, sure, absolutely. Because that's drinking hours up there.
So is golf. Well, golf is drinking hours.
That's fair.
Okay.
Anyway, so the draw of a cult is an interesting question.
Because I'm watching this film, and at no point, Ryan, am I going, sounds like a good life. Sign me up. This looks like a great time. Let me at it.
Nobody in any situation seeks a cult because they want to be in a cult. They seek a cult because they want belonging, and that cult provides that to them. This is a woman who has lost her family. She is in the process of losing a relationship that's holding on by strings. She has next to nobody, right? She has nothing. You see every scene that you see of her in her home in the United States is her sitting in the dark.
Right.
And not talking to anybody. Kind of, she's on the phone, she's ranting, she's trying to reach out to people. Nobody's reaching back to her. She finds out her family's dead. She goes to Sweden where it's bright and it's beautiful, and she's on drugs and feels euphoric, and she's dancing, and people are showing her that they care about her, and they're engaging with her. The scene around the maypole where suddenly she believes she's speaking Swedish and she's communicating with this person who may or may not actually be able to understand her and communicate with her. There's a feeling of belonging there. And it's not so much that she went to seek out a cult. She actively tried to leave early on. Remember when the scene at the cliffs, she tried to leave. She wanted to go. She wanted to be alone, and found that every time that she turned around to be alone, there was someone there that cared about her. And eventually she found home. And that's how they indoctrinate you in a cult. So it's the draw of a cult isn't the cult itself. It's the feeling of belonging and taking advantage of the idea that you're alone. And they play on that and take that mental break that you have and play it against you.
And I think that a cult, specifically this cult, but cults in general, seek people like that out. There's this kind of idea that if you get indoctrinated into a cult, that like you're stupid or you're silly or you're unrealistic or all of these negative things. That's not really what it is. It's exactly what Ryan said. It's not a weakness per se, but it's a sense that you need something. You need what the cult has. And in this case, she needs belonging. She needs connection. And they know that about her. And they don't care to offer that same love and emotional connection to any of the other newcomers.
Certainly
whatsoever.
Not. Yeah, right. Absolutely.
There's even a moment where so after the two old people have died by suicide.
Yep.
Connie and Simon, those other two,
the British ones, yes, the British couple.
Yeah. They're like, oh, we're leaving, and the kind of leader of the cult explains to them why they're doing this. And as she's explaining it, she turns to Danny, who's like 20 feet away, and talks to her. She doesn't talk to Simon and Connie. She talks to Danny. Because she's not trying to keep Simon and Connie around. She doesn't care. They're going to leave. She's going to kill them. She knows that. She doesn't want them. She wants Danny.
Right.
Because she knows that these two people are never going to stick around, even if she wanted them there. They don't need this place. Danny needs this place.
Right. They found the mark. Like it was almost like what Pele, right? Or Pele, the great soccer legend. He discovers quickly. Like, I think he sees a mark in Danny. So, like, when Danny's coming, when Danny, like, he finds out Danny's coming, he's not disappointed because in that he might have the one true mark of the whole operation, right? It might be like, we've found somebody that, that we could keep, that we can have, that is, like, there's a mark here, we can have it. And clearly he's got the intentions of having that.
Well, and even in the scene where they're complaining about her at the restaurant, right, where they're at the cafe, wherever it is that they are, he doesn't really speak. He just kind of listens to what's happening. He hears what's going on in her life. He hears that she's got issues with her family and that she's having problems with communication and feeling alone. And he sees an opportunity, right? He understands what's going on with her. He knows the vulnerable state that she's in, and he makes this decision anyway. So it's really interesting to me that you just kind of watch him pay attention, and that's kind of his thing through the whole movie, is that he's never explicitly villainous. He's just always listening.
No,
he's
it's
the
true.
one man. He's the one man in this whole place that is actually listening to her, and he uses that against her.
I think that's true.
The one thing that she wants is to be heard and listened to, and to feel validated, and he gives her that, but he does it so that he can use it to his own ends.
I have to take a mom break.
Oh, mom
So
break.
Please keep talking.
We're going to move to least favorite scenes then. I don't know if you have any, Lauren.
Okay.
Take your quick 5-second mom break, Ryan, and I will hit on least favorite scenes. All right. Least favorite scene, Ryan.
Oh God, it has to be the cliff scene.
Yeah, yeah. Top immediately for me. Immediately.
I first of all, I understand why you do it, right? Like narratively, it makes some sense to me, but like, man, I just cannot. I can't stomach that scene. Seeing the faces get bashed in.
Oh, it's not even the jumping, right? It's the bashing. It's the big mallet.
You could give me the sound, and I would get what you're driving at.
Yep, 100%.
Right? Give me the audience's reactions, and I would get what you're driving at. But I don't know why I needed the viscera of that, but I didn't appreciate it.
No,
and it's
with
kind
you
of
there.
the one thing. It's kind of the one thing about this movie that I'm like, oh God, did I really need that? Did I really want that? I don't think that's something I wanted.
That's right there with me. I thought the sex scene went too long. I'm with you. You like it. I was like,
I like it for the historical imagery. I didn't like it for the sex scene because, I'm not. That's not why I'm watching this movie. You know what I mean?
And it's just the whole like pew pie like that he eats basically. I mean, it's just the gross.
Well, they allude to that earlier in the movie with that tapestry where it's the spell. She's trying to put that spell on.
Yeah, and it clearly is working.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, the drugs help.
Yeah, drugs do help. Let me just be honest. At the group feast, any group feast, unless it's a family Thanksgiving or Christmas, if it's a group feast and we have to wait for people to take the first bite, I'm out of there. Fuck that. I want to eat when I want to eat. I'm out of there. I'm not doing the group feast. I'm not sitting at a table with 90 other people. I'm just not doing that anymore. I want to eat when I want to eat. Damn it. So I'm out on the group feast.
Yeah, I feel that. I'm more of a.
You and I are
more
both.
of a group.
We're fans of food. Group feast.
Yeah, I would think I'm more team group feast than you would be. But no, I don't think that it. I think that a lot of this movie, the thing that I don't like is that it all felt a bit gratuitous.
It makes me feel, as a guy with a whole bunch of Swedish in my background, like it makes it. I can't imagine it was good for Swedish tourism. Like I feel like it's a big step back for Swedish tourism in Scandinavia.
I'll tell you this though. I mean, you remove the cult, and I'd want to go stay there
and just do mushrooms and hang out in the wilderness.
It's a beautiful landscape.
Oh God, yes. I just noticed the golf people, Tourists, they're there right now. They just went to Stockholm for their trip.
Sweden. It's like I love the landscape in Minnesota. I do. Sweden is like that on steroids. Right. The reason that Scandinavians settled in Minnesota is they came here and they said, this place reminds me of home, and they stayed here. And you see that in pictures of Sweden. I mean, really, it's a gorgeous place, and I would love to go.
I leave for 30 seconds, and you're doing the Visit Sweden press tour.
Yeah, a little bit. No, not really. We were talking about like what it did for like this cult. We were getting back into cults. It doesn't matter what we were talking about. Anyway, Lauren, let me hit you with this in least favorite scenes. Okay. It's not really a least favorite scene, but it's something that I didn't quite figure out. So maybe you can help me dissect it here before we move on to our awards.
Okay.
The constant baby crying in the like where everybody's sleeping. There's just the constant moan of a baby cry in like and you're simulating it right now with young Tim. I'm kidding, young Kieran. Sorry, I don't mean to call it. It's not the young baby. I'm assuming you heard it, right? Every time they enter.
Not hear
Are you serious?
I you kidding me?
No, I'm serious. So like every time they enter that sleeping quarters, anytime they're in that building, I can hear the faint baby cry off in the very faint off in the distance. Because I even wrote it down. I'm like, the constant baby crying.
One of two things is happening here. One, you're delusional.
No, I'm not. I don't have any babies in my house. There's no babies where I live.
Two, I both worked in daycare for a long time and now have a child and just don't hear baby crying unless it matters.
I gotta find the scene on my phone and put it up to the damn and get it up on the microphone or something, because I'm not making this up. Damn it, I'm not.
He's not making this up. I went and I Googled it. It's absolutely true.
Okay, so why does it say why it's happening?
So it's designed to be the summer of life journey for the mother, right? Where it's implied that, like Pele, these women leave and go experience things and bring people back to join because they rely on other people outside the cult, or they're going and getting pregnant and coming back, and it's sort of like it's part of their cycle that's happening here with the cycle of life in the Hurga people.
But literally, go ahead.
That's definitely an allusion to what's happening with Christian and Maya then, because
100%.
That's something that there are so many things in this movie where they tell you what's happening and then we see it happen and we don't even notice that they've told us. And the thing with Christian and Maya is one of them. So the baby crying thing is probably a part of that. In addition to, at one point, Christian asks an elder, you're a very tight-knit community. Do you have like an inbreeding problem here? And he kind of explains, we try not to do that. Sometimes cousins can mate, whatever. And then he also goes on to say, but we pretty much rely on outside people coming into the community to be a part of that. And that alludes to a couple of things. It alludes to exactly what happens with Christian, where they bring him in, he impregnates Maya, and then he is useless. He is useless, so they just use him.
Yeah. He's in a goddamn bear suit for some damn reason.
Yeah. Or like Pele and Ingmar do, they leave, they get pregnant, and then they come back. These people don't actually have to be a part of the cult. And it's almost better that they're not. They just have to have the right genes.
You might be right. Yeah.
And there's a whole aspect of being chosen in this society, right? Where not just with the men and women who are reproducing, but we get a very specific look at the ritual in the scene with Josh and the Ruby Rauder, where he's told about the inbreeding ritual and how it was very specifically chosen inbreeding to produce an oracle to write their book, right? That they say sometimes cousins mate. It's very specific inbreeding. That's everything is the ritual. All of this is the ritual. And there's no interaction in this movie that isn't a part of the ritual that is culminated at the end of the movie. It's all a part of it. Everyone that's there is there intentionally. If you're seeing this community, you were chosen to see this community.
I'm blown away at the fact that Lauren did not ever hear that goddamn incessant baby crying 3:00 in the morning when Josh gets out of bed to go take a look at what's going on in the book and take the pictures and eventually get his ass whooped. You can hear the baby still crying. Jesus Christ. I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't sleep under these circumstances. It's unbelievable.
I literally, I tuned that out. I've been tuning that out for a long time.
This also leads to what is one of a few Tom Cain facts of the week in this movie.
Oh, thank God we brought that back. Oh, God, yes. I was wondering if we were going to keep that. Time for the Tom Cain fact of the week.
I've had a couple that are worthy so far on this podcast.
Yes.
This one is a Tom Cain fact of the week. The sex scene, the baby crying, the fact that women are the center of this festival, this ritual that they're doing for Midsommar. It's because the Midsommar festival is dedicated, at least in pagan history, not just to the summer solstice, but to the goddess Freya, who is the goddess of fertility and women and rebirth in pagan society. So it's a celebrate. This whole festival is a celebration of motherhood, and the baby crying is for a group of people who say that they're a community. The first thing a community usually does when a baby's crying is try to figure out why that baby's crying. If a baby's incessantly crying in a woman-centric, cult-like society that is all community-based, something's not right here.
That is a really good read.
That is good. Ladies and gentlemen, the Tom Cain Fact of the Week. Good job by
that
Ryan.
That is a really good read on that. But also, it could just be that it's a bunch of women who have tuned out the sound of a baby crying, as I have done.
They're wandering around with their hands like this on their back going, God, where did I put that child?
Yes, just wonder where the hell is that baby crying coming from?
We are short one baby.
Marco Polo.
You know what? My
Marco.
mom brained it. I put him over here.
Oh, he's over there.
Look, man, I worked in daycare for 3 years, and now I have a baby of my own, and I have several nieces and nephews. And if I let baby crying get to me, I would not be here today.
We found him over by the desk that we built from IKEA the other day. It's right over there. There it is. We found him. Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
He's on the floor. He's having a good time.
Everything's fine. He's fine. He's playing with the cats. Anyway. Let's go to some awards. This is a new one. We've eliminated some awards here on the pod on Peak Cinema. We've added some new ones. This is one we like to have. It's not really an award more than it is a hypothetical conversation. It's called. It's sort of in honor of the Breakfast Club. When the Breakfast Club leaves detention, we always wonder. Brian asks, "What happens when we get to school on Monday?" That's what this is called. So this is what happens on Monday. All right. We've just had a big sacrifice, the burning of effigy of the sacrifices of Christian and all the other people that have shown up to this thing. What happens on Monday? Anybody want to take a guess?
I just wrote Danny lives her best life. Clearly. Danny has the greatest time on Monday. She gets to be a part of this community where she is the queen.
Danny
has a good time.
She is smiling as this teepee is going up in flames, and she just has the craziest shit-eating grin on her face after just a film's worth of crying. All of a sudden, she's smiling. Yeah, her and Pele strike up this great relationship. You get the vibe. You know, she wakes up and has some pannekuchen, and everything is just feeling good, right? Everything is ready to go going forward. It's almost like she starts anew on Monday, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's how the ending is supposed to feel. It's supposed to feel like a new beginning. It's supposed to feel cathartic. Her shitty boyfriend is gone, and she doesn't have to deal with his crap anymore. And so now she gets to live her best life with Pele, who, as far as she knows at this moment in time, it could be the love of her life. Who knows? The only person who has shown her any real interest. So I wrote, Danny lives her best life. She has a great time in the cult.
Ryan, what happens on Monday?
Sex, drugs, and some weird chanting off in the distance. There's that scene in The Breakfast Club, if we're going to bring it back to that, where everybody's kind of smoking weed and it seems like it's a weird upper. And we kind of talked about that when we did The Breakfast Club on this podcast, where no one who's high on marijuana is like dancing like they're on cocaine. But this to my mind is the hallucinogenics equivalent, right? We're all very active for people who are all clearly on hallucinogenics in these scenes here. And maybe that's part of the problem. Y'all just need to sit down and veg out for a while. Maybe have some food because you haven't eaten through the whole movie.
Yeah, you've eaten some shitty food. I mean, no Swedish meatballs, no
they
pannekuchenhus.
They don't eat.
Yeah. Fun fact, if you watch it a second time, no one in the film eats. The only person who eats is Christian when he eats that weird hair pie.
Literally.
He's the only one. That's the only time somebody eats in the entire movie.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, there's a little part of me that feels like she wakes up from this bender on Monday and goes, I just want to recap. Did I see all of this? I burned my boyfriend alive in a bear suit. My family is still dead 19,000 miles away in America. What about the other douchebags that I flew here with? Are they dead too? Yep, okay, they're dead too. So it's just me and all of you mouth breathers, and I'm wearing this crown of flowers, and that's all I got. Is that what it is? I still don't have any money. I have no job. I have no prospects. I got to feel like at some point there's a conversation to be had there.
I think realistically, one of two things happens. Danny goes full cult.
Yeah.
She really, she is now a part of this family, and she will die for them, literally. Or, yes, she wakes up on Monday and goes, what the hell did I just do?
Yeah, she's either Ruby
Everyone
Ridge.
Everyone I've ever known and had a connection with outside of this community is now dead, and it's partially my fault.
Yeah, she's either David Koresh from this point on, or she just continues the high maintenance woman. Like, she's like, and then, well, here, watch this. The Florence Pugh cry face comes back again. What have I done? And she just cries for like another 6 days.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. That is a real possibility. Yeah, she either realizes that she's in a cult and that she just killed her boyfriend, or she just allows herself to be in it. Especially because it's not like the cult is like this all the time. This is a once in a 90-year.
That's true. She ain't gonna make the next one.
No,
we don't think anyway.
So I do also think there's going to be a bit of a shock on Monday when there isn't all this pageantry and they're not all a part of this, life will just go on. They'll just farm and they'll live and they'll exist.
Like, you guys, so you really truly don't have satellite TV? Like, I swear, guys, the new season of Hell's Kitchen's coming on, and I gotta be able to watch that. That's not gonna work. All right. Go ahead.
She's gonna come to a realization on Monday that she made a mistake.
Yeah,
she made a bit of a mistake.
She starts to realize very quickly, like, oh man, living in the middle of nowhere in Sweden kind of sucks balls. Like, this might not be good at all. This is terrible.
And then Pele hands her some drugs, and then she'll be fine.
Then they're good again. Yeah, you never know. Who wins the movie? Who wins this movie?
I mean, Florence Pugh, right?
She's good in it. She's very good. I actually wonder if Swedish cults win the movie. Don't you get the vibe that like it's a big win for Swedish cults, right? They make it sort of desirable to be in the middle of nowhere in Sweden.
Great representation for Swedish cults. I know they've been asking for it.
Yeah.
So it's really fantastic.
When are we going to get ours? Yeah, they've been saying that forever.
When are we going to get our Swedish cult movie? We just want to be accurate,
Just to take a bit of a contrarian take here, I would say that my winner of the movie is Christian, because he has an ending that is worthy of his mediocrity, which is probably the most special thing he's ever done in his life.
See, I would argue, it's not he gets a non-mediocre death for a very mediocre guy.
Right.
He dies in a goddamn bearskin.
It's way too special for him. He didn't deserve that special of a death, but he got it, and he died. He was immobilized and killed as he lived, just wandering naked after having lain with someone that he probably shouldn't.
Well, I think it's important to say that Christian is incredibly passive throughout the entire film. He is passive in his relationship with Danny. He is passive in I guess technically cheating on her, although I'm not quite sure I would qualify getting drugged and then having sex with someone cheating.
Yeah,
but
I feel like I got to give him a pass there. I feel like I do. Yeah.
Yes, I would give him a pass there. But he's incredibly passive in all of their fights, in this, like, even picking a thesis. He didn't pick the thesis.
Yeah, he's a thief. And so, he's a plagiarizer. And
so I think aside from him dying via bear on fire, which is admittedly very cool, he doesn't. He has no agency in this at all. He is completely immobilized, and so he even dies passively as well. And it's just, I think that's pretty fitting.
I think it's a tie. It's between Swedish. It might be between Swedish pagans and Florence Pugh, though. I think she She does have layers in this movie, although I get an ass full of her during the course of this film. Like, I just feel like she's crying every 6 seconds. Might have one of the ugliest cry faces I've ever seen. Like,
she has a, you know what? Okay, actually, I'm going to challenge you on that because I love it so much. I love her cry face. It's very definitive. She does that thing where she has that super, like comical frown.
Yeah, like somebody put a plate of shit under her nose. Like, that's kind of what it feels like. Somebody just walked up and just
looks like my kid when he's about to sob. Just
yeah.
it's you know what? But it's very childlike. It is very childlike, and I think that's why it works so well. Is they're all kind of cosplaying as adults, but they're not. And there are several moments throughout the movie where I feel like she's playing it up, that this kind of childish aspect to her character. She's playing it up. That scene at the end where they try to make her eat a fish, and then she like looks at, she doesn't eat it, and then she kind of looks at it like 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 a little
she's
kid
like,
would.
yeah, exactly.
There are a couple of moments throughout the movie where she does that, and I think that's on purpose.
Yeah.
To really make it feel like she has no control in this situation. She has no control over her own emotions. I think she gives such a phenomenal performance. It bothers the living bejesus out of me that the Oscars continue to shut out horror movies, because if we are not labeling this a horror movie, if it is not in that genre, if we are just saying this is a drama, she would be nominated.
I would also say that even if you're not looking at it from the framework of a horror movie, it's an excellent social commentary that I think gets missed because you put it in the label of a horror movie.
Yep.
Right? I mean, we talked about how, we didn't talk about this in this podcast, but Lauren and I kind of saw this in a show that we were watching on how the horror genre really got legitimacy when Stanley Kubrick decided to direct The Shining, and people thought, oh, well, it's a Kubrick movie, it's not a horror movie because there's that stigma attached to horror movies. But what we're getting out of horror movies, really what we've gotten for decades, but what we're really getting right now are some excellent social commentaries on the state of the world and how the world is for women, and how women rely on this community to share their pain and share their suffering, and the men are very much there just to kind of facilitate that pain and suffering that brings the women together. And that's how the women become involved in the cult, is their pain has been caused by men, and they're looking to each other for help and comfort, and they become each other's family. It's kind of a really interesting social commentary, and it's really upsetting that bodies like the Academy of Film don't think of horror movies in that way when they probably should.
They absolutely should, especially because I think that horror, in my opinion, horror is best when it is saying something. People like Friday the 13th and Halloween, and not like I don't. Those movies are perfectly fun, but I recognize that they're not like, high art or whatever. They're just fun, and that's perfectly okay. But then there are movies like this, like Hereditary, like A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, that have really important things to say, that are executed so well through the framework of a horror movie. So much of horror is putting a mirror up to what society, what specific groups fear at the time. And it's kind of the best genre to do that in a way that feels both escapist and horrifying. I think Midsommar does that incredibly well. I think Hereditary does that a little bit better, in my opinion. Real quick disclaimer: if you're not into horror movies, don't watch that movie. It's legitimately the scariest movie I've ever seen. But there are so many movies. I mean, like Jordan Peele has built his entire horror career out of the social commentary horror movie. Get Out, Us, and Nope all have something incredibly important and very definitive to say, and that can only be told through the lens of horror. And it's a little obnoxious that the Academy still tends to think that all horror movies are like low budget 80s slasher flicks or something. That is beyond not true. And there are definitely movies that deserve their attention. And if this was labeled as any other genre, she would have been nominated. That's just the truth.
We are way deep into this pod right now. So let's move to our final awards. We call these the Ryan, I think, kind of pitched the idea to give out awards, kind of like our goofy awards. Had to get a name for it, so I'm leaning on the Peakies, the Peak Cinema Peaky Awards. If Ryan comes up with a better name, we'll definitely do it. Maybe we'll figure it out. But for today, we'll call it the Peakies. These are awards that you want to give out to people in the cast or things you want to do in the show. Why don't we go ahead and throw one out? If you got an award, Lauren, fire away.
Yes, my award goes to Pele as 2019's most effective recruiter. Like one of those awards that you get working in a company. Like, oh, you've gotten a lot of people. You get a $250 gift card because you've helped hire a lot of people. That's what Pele is.
You get a set of steak knives, Pele. Way to go. That's a big deal for you.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
A year-long membership to the Jelly of the Month Club.
Yep, there you go.
Yes, exactly. That's what Pele gets.
Ryan, give me an award.
My award goes to Dan for most smashable face.
Yeah.
Great work by him in just absorbing that blow. Really, who's laughing now? He got his hat. There's it's a Family Guy reference there. If you didn't catch that, but, it's a disturbing scene, but great job by him standing up to that.
I'm going to give my award to, I got a couple, but I'm going to give this one to Florence Pugh for, I know his friends are assholes, but they might be right about you award. I give that to you, Florence Pugh, for being one hell of a high maintenance woman. They had a feeling you were going to get your boyfriend killed, and you sure did at the end. Congratulations. You got everybody else killed around him. Everything you seem to touch dies. Have a great time with Pele in the cult. Way to go. You accomplished your goals.
Then I'm going to give one extra one to Christian. Let's just call him a wet paper award. That's about as interesting as he gets. He's just wet paper.
I wanted to give him mediocre man playing apathetic boyfriend award. I wanted to give him that, but that felt like a pretty apropos award for him.
I have two others.
Human mildew.
Human mildew
like
award.
Yeah. Just kind of annoying, and he won't go away.
I have two others.
Yep.
The first is to Mark, which is the Put on a Happy Face award. Just really did a great job there at the end of his ordeal there. You just pitched up the wrong tree. It happens.
Sure does.
The second is to the bear, and I have to say it's the You Didn't Deserve This award. That poor bear just sat in that cage the entire movie before being gutted and put on a man who didn't deserve this. So, this poor bear. Sorry you had to go through that, but here's an award for your trouble.
My last one I will also give to Josh, and it's called the Put Your Fucking Phone Away award. Jesus Christ, these kids today, they won't learn. They won't learn that phone gets you in trouble. Put it away, Josh. Put the phone away, man.
If he wouldn't have been on his phone, he might have seen Pele in the corner there with the hammer.
Yeah, it's very possible. Jeez.
Oh, fun fact, when you watch this a second time, you can see Pele in the corner as the camera pans to the guy in the Josh in the Mark suit.
Which another Tom Cain fact of the week. A
twofer.
The Mark suit coming in there where he is pantsless from the waist down is a reference to skin pants, which were worn for good luck and money in Viking myth. Where they would skin their enemies and wear their skin as pants
Remind me of that next time the Powerball hits 700 million.
Yeah, Tim's gonna wear some skin pants.
I may not wear pants anywhere I go for the whole day if I can get close to that. I need whatever luck I can get. I'll take the day off work and wear no clothes. We'll
That
see if we
guy
can
from
get that
Texas Chainsaw Massacre must have just been rolling in it.
Yeah, Jesus, he's got to be just yeah. He's like Scrooge McDuck,
Well,
just
you know,
swimming in the money pit.
He didn't run the whole movie. He didn't. Rich guys don't run. So
Great point. Neither do neither do poor fat guys. They don't do it either. They also don't run.
different reasons, for very different reasons.
Very different. That's the ultimate rich man, poor man. They don't run. What do they have the same thing of? Yep, that's just 9 cars in their driveway and they don't run. That's both rich man, poor man things right there for you. All right, hey guys. It was so good to have Peak Cinema back in the rotation. I cannot wait for more. We're going to take probably a little more of an uplifter on the next one. I think we'll try to get the mood a little lighter for the next pod. We'll see what we can do. But we went for an hour 40. Lauren thought we'd go 3 hours. I tried to keep her under that. $140 is a new record. Great job for everybody. Oh, Lauren, it was so good to see you again. Thank you so much, dear.
Yeah, it was great to be back, even though I had to hold my child the whole time because he woke up 10 minutes into this.
You know what? He did a great job tonight. Well done. Rhino, always a pleasure. Good to see you. And once again, we want to thank everybody for listening. Continue to subscribe, share out. If you want to hear more episodes in the Peak Cinema, you can go back in the archive on Podbean, timpodcast.podbean.com. Go find the archive. There's probably like 20 some odd different episodes of Peak Cinema and more coming indeed. Thanks to Lauren. Thanks to Ryan. Thanks to everybody who listens. And until next time, this is Tim saying keep your head up and we will see you.